Hello vinyl community. I wanted to make a video of my version of the 10 album challenge, the meme that's been going around on Facebook, 10 albums in 10 days. Different people seem to interpret it in different ways, so playing it according to different rules. And my version, I decided I wasn't going to attempt any kind of a top 10 or any kind of a ranked listing, but just sort of make a choice, an off-the-cuff choice of 10 albums that have had a strong and lasting impact on me, that have floated in my consciousness through life, which means necessarily that they'll all be pretty much older albums. And of course they had to be all on vinyl, which means they had to be ones that I still had the vinyl copies, and unfortunately that wouldn't be everything that I might otherwise choose, but that is why perhaps I started with a choice that I'm really not quite sure why I included this one right off the bat. But Bonzo Dog Band, this is the American equivalent of the Donut in Granny's Greenhouse, the second album, which was added, or to which was added the Urban Spaceman single, and the album was retitled Urban Spaceman. And it was presented in a cool gatefold cover with booklet, containing a lot of very surrealistic humor, depicting each individual member of the band, and it's very Python-esque in a way, which is a misleading term to use because it's not something that was influenced by Monty Python, but it was something that developed in parallel with Monty Python, even involving the same people to some extent, certainly Neil Innes. And it's just something that's so mind-bendingly crazy and funny in a surreal and confusing way that I've just always really had a warm spot in my heart for that one. Something completely different would be, and this was a great cheat where I chose Anthony Braxton and Derek Bailey Duo 1 and Duo 2. They're essentially one album that happened to be released as two separate halves, but a really remarkable example of free music, free improvisation for Braxton's multiple woodwinds and that weird splintery effect that Derek Bailey always got out of his guitar. And this was something that I picked up when I was pretty new to jazz in general, so it was one of my first albums in the free improvisation genre, and one that really impressed me. So that one had to be one of my choices. Very early album, one that I've loved very much since the 60s. Crazy World of Arthur Brown. Just an incredible proto-Prog exercise, certainly with the classical influences, the operatic stylings, the heavy organ sound from Vincent Crane, and just some wonderful, wonderful vocals from Arthur Brown. His version of I Put a Spell on You is just killer. His lyrics and vocals on all the originals are just mind-blowing. So this has just been an all-time favorite for me, always. Another very early jazz album, one of the very first jazz albums I ever got, was this one on Impulse by Ornette Coleman, Crisis. Brilliant cover. And this is the band with Don Cherry and Dewey Redman and Charlie Hayden and Ornette Coleman's son DiNardo on drums. Credited as Ornette D. Coleman. And This one I picked up because I had actually heard the long version of Song for Che with the long bass solo by Charlie Hayden on the radio and thought that is amazing. So had to get this one, and there's a lot amazing about this even aside from that one wonderful track. So there you go. This copy is the copy I've had since 1974, I think, and it's a little warped from water damage, but that's how it was when it was brand new from, I think I bought that at the warehouse. The next one I chose was Another Green World by Eno, and this is one of my all-time favorite album covers, apart from being just an utterly wonderful album and highly influential to me. The one that started in a very tentative way his ambient experiments, because the first two albums had been entirely vocal. And this was the first one to include any instrumentals, and some of those instrumentals are in a more subdued mode and not quite presenting a strong beat or any kind of a melody, but more just a drifty sound to them. And some of them are more of a rock sound, but that's one of the things that's great about the album. It's experimenting in various combinations of the drifty ambient sound, the pop rock vocal sound, and some rocky instrumentals, some bits of there's one track named for Joe Zawinul, so you know that's got a bit of a fusion influence in there, as unlikely as that may be. So Eno has to be included in the list, as does Uncle Frank. So this was the first Frank Zappa album I ever heard or owned, because I wanted to get into Frank Zappa and had never heard any of the music. It was not played on the radio, and there was no YouTube in those days, so I just took a chance, and I chose the one that was a double album. It just seemed like a good bargain, and boy, what a choice. Uncle Meat. This album was just one that struck me like a ton of bricks and has been a life changer. So, Uncle Meat, another one that has an interesting and amusing booklet inside, so a lot of strange stuff to digest while listening to the music. And again, we're zigzagging from the absolute mania and hyper-complexity of late 60s Frank Zappa and his electric chamber music, with some kind of very solemn and sparse acoustic chamber music, or chamber music-like pieces by Popol Vuh on this wonderful album, Hosiana Mantra. Piano, oboe, sitar, all blending together in this kind of devotional and hymn-like and meditational expressions of music. And that's just one. Again, it was the first music by Popol Vuh that I ever heard and owned. Again, it was wanting to hear the band and just making a selection unheard and really choosing the right one for me to start off with. Next, I'm a huge fan of the ECM label, so there's so much I could choose as a representative of that music, but the one that I chose for this exercise was one that's a little bit outside the usual, more not the part of ECM that's like almost tangential to New Age music, the more gentle and chamber music-like pieces, but they could get very heavy and electric as well, and certainly did when Terry Ripdahl was driving the wagon. And on this album he gets very heavy indeed. Odyssey by Terry Ripdahl. Great favorite. Another double album. That's 3 out of the last 4 albums have been doubles. This one I'm not going to really talk about because I want to do another video about electronic music. But Tangerine Dream Sight, big one for me. Another favorite cover of all time. And this is the one that didn't get much of a response, the one that probably the least number of people would have heard. An import from Poland of Michal Urbaniak with the wonderful Ursula Dudziak on vocals and percussion. Always very much loved her echoplexed vocal stylings. And this is a very cool fusion album with a great sidelong piece on it. Michal Urbaniak's Constellation in Concert. It's not in shrink wrap, it's just got some loose plastic that I can remove, so that's why it still has the price sticker and this E on it that doesn't want to quite wipe off, but that's it. Great album. And that was 10, but of course I'm cheating, so I went on to 11. This one goes up to 11. I wasn't even thinking in those terms. But couldn't go out without Robert Wyatt, Rock Bottom. The album that he composed while recovering from the fall that cost him the use of his legs and left him in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. Left him with a rock bottom, so to speak. So there's the sort of morbid humor that he had. Even as this album has strangely surrealistic love songs to his partner Alfie, or Alfie as she's typed in the song titles here. I have no idea why this copy has a little pink sticker, but I've always left it there. It also informs us that it does not include the hit single I'm a Believer. And indeed it does not. Truth in Packaging. But that album is just such a wonderful and gentle and emotional, surrealistic again, extremely progressive, extremely moving piece of music. So that was my 10 plus. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll talk with you again soon. Bye-bye.